So here we are, Legal and General Just Covered podcast, another exciting episode incoming, where we talk to advisors about their views and opinions in the intermediary space. My name's Wayne.
And I'm Hazel, and today we're going to focus on some of our latest divorce research. And to help us do that, we have got somebody who's extremely passionate in that area. So we've got Hulya from Venus Global Financial. And welcome. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me here, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk about such an important topic in divorce month.
Yeah, definitely. And it's a big month for us, isn't it? Because divorce really spans every element of someone's finances. And it's something that I think many people don't realise until they're in that situation. And can you tell us, how did you get into your career? Where has it started and what's the journey been like?
Sure. How long have you got?
Yeah.
I don't know, but I've been around for a while, to be honest. I've started my financial advisor journey in 2019, 2020, after my own divorce, finalized in 2019. However, I've got a long background working in financial services and banking previously. So I'm not going to tell how long, but I worked in private banking, wealth management, investment banking previously, and my last role was at UBS Wealth Management and as a client advisor. So I studied maths. Numbers was always my thing, but I also like people. So I always worked with client-facing roles. I left UBS Wealth Management when I had my twin boys, and I thought I will have a little career break, but it went on a little bit because I underestimated the challenges of having 3 children under the age of 5. And throughout the divorce, I realized the financial situation we were in, which I didn't, because financial abuse, financial control can happen in many relationships, not only in marriages. And I thought that even someone who's a finance professional, banker, put herself in this situation. What about the other people, other women especially? And I set up Venus Global Finance. So now my mission is to empower other women who's going through the similar challenges as I have done, and specializing in divorce financial planning mainly, and helping families and individuals in this really, really difficult and stressful time.
And it is exactly that. It's probably one of the most difficult and stressful things somebody can go through, isn't it? And really what an inspiration you are to have taken your own scenario and then thought, how can I better others so they don't have to go through this? And how's the last kind of 5 years, is that 5 years now coming up in business? How has it been going for you?
It's going amazing, to be honest. First of all, I really enjoy this because I think this is not just a job for me. That's kind of my life purpose in a way. And what I can say to anyone who's listening, maybe going through difficult times through their life, I think life doesn't happen to you, life happens for you. So what I believe is everything that I've been through in my career journey and in my personal journey prepared me to be here and fulfill kind of like my life purpose. And if you do the right thing, I think right thing happens. And it's great.
We need more people like you doing the right thing. And I know from personal experience that the evidence of economic abuse and financial abuse can be for partners, particularly for women. So I know you've lived through it. You've used that as a purpose, your mission to help others with regards to that. So when you set the business up, did you focus on a particular area of finance at all? How did that work?
Actually, the idea was to focus on divorce. Right. Because when I was going through my own divorce, through the financial settlement, I actually remember my solicitor calling Prudential about some pension plans and etc. So I thought, hold on a second, that's not how it should be. Like, why is he calling the pension provider? I should have a, financial advisor. At the time, I was sitting my exams again. I think I set these exams more than anybody else because of the career breaks that I had. And I thought I was never pointed out to speak to a financial advisor about this pension sharing order. And I thought there is a need for that. I shouldn't be speaking to the pension provider after everything is settled. So my niche was always the divorce financial planning, because, as I said, things happen in life, and I now know the legal and also the financial consequences. And I thought that I can use this, and everything somehow fall into place for me.
And you were bringing your expertise to the fore. So how did you go out to find clients? Where did you get your leads from when you first set up, and how has that worked for you?
I think when you first set up, or when I first set up, I thought that I'm going to speak to as many people as possible. It doesn't have to be clients. Like, put yourself out there. Like, let people know what you're doing, and don't be so self-conscious. Like, I think we all have this imposter syndrome. Like, who am I to give advice to someone who's going through divorce? Like, my divorce was very messy. Without going into details, while I was still going through that, I was doing my exams, and I was working as a financial advisor. And at times you think that, hold on a second, like, I'm not sorted. Am I really qualified to give advice to other people? But despite the doubt, carry on. Like, you are qualified, you are enough. And I think that's the main thing. So I wasn't picking and choosing clients, and I was just out there helping people. And I thought that they will then refer me to their friends and family, and people will know that I stand what I stand for, basically.
And it's definitely needed. You personally felt that when you were going through your own divorce. As you've said, the solicitor was calling pension funds. And we did an episode not long ago with a lady called Fiona Tate as well, who's very passionate on this area. And she said exactly the same as you, is by the time the solicitors sign things off, that's too late. You need to have had somebody stepping in before that. And we've recently done, at Legal in General, we sponsor divorce research. We like to speak to consumers who've maybe been through that and really help them reflect on what would they've done differently. But what we found in that research is 40% of people said that they felt that their financial settlement was unfair, but only 7% of people had ever gotten financial advice as part of their divorce. So how do you think we can start that process better, and when do you think is the right time to start speaking to somebody like yourself if there are people out there who are thinking of going down the kind of divorce route?
I mean, people who's going through divorce straight away, I know it from my clients or from the inquiries that I receive, is like, oh, I need a solicitor because solicitor is going to fix everything. And no offense, you do need legal advice at some circumstances, but to be perfectly honest, it's not as essential as getting financial advice, because law is law. A lawyer can do only so much within the context of financial settlement, but financial advisor and financial advice is crucial, because the financial implications of divorce is massive. And if you don't understand the consequences when you start thinking about that, then it might be too late to do something afterwards, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I saw on a local, it's one of those, Facebook groups that you get, and it came up not long ago, actually, on the kind of Edinburgh Ladies Facebook group. Someone had put an anonymous post, and they said, I'm thinking about leaving my husband, I'm thinking about separating and getting divorced, who am I best to speak to? And it's exactly what you said. Everyone put, get a solicitor, speak to, there was a couple of charities. So I posted, said, you need a financial advisor, like immediately, who will help you. And somebody replied back to me saying, why would you speak to a financial advisor? And I said, well, because you're going to be dividing the finances. That you need somebody that can help you with that. And it was quite amazing. I think there was about 60 comments, a mix of solicitors. A lot of people had said, go to your mortgage advisor about the mortgage, go to solicitor. But I was the only person that was like, you should go and seek financial advice. And it's just, there's such a lack of knowledge out there, isn't there, in that area?
But definitely, it's just like the first point of call is, as you mentioned, just speak to a family lawyer. By all means, get a legal advice, but I think speaking to a financial advisor is as crucial, if not more important.
And what was it that obviously has driven your passion for the kind of more female-specific side of divorce? Obviously, we see all the time female advice gaps, etc. But could you explain a little bit more about where your passion sits? Yeah.
In terms of the divorce financial planning side of it, when I speak to ladies who's going through a divorce, and in most cases, there is some sort of financial abuse and financial control within the relationship, within the marriage over the years, which was the case for me as well, I believe. And by all means, we're not victims. It's how it's happens. So what I see is when I speak to these women and when they are going through divorce, it's a very emotional process. It's not just dividing the assets and signing some papers. You take the house, I take the children. It's not as simple as that. It's very emotional.
Must be a realization piece, an awareness piece, when you probably can see things, when you're talking through stuff with them, you can probably see it hitting home as you're outlining the implications of what's happening. Is that right?
Yes, it is tough.
Yeah,
it's not easy. Like some of the conversations that I have with my clients are difficult conversations. But what I would say is I'm not afraid of having these difficult conversations because I've got personal experience as well. And you need to have these difficult conversations. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to resolve by denying the issue that there is there. So the reason why I'm focusing more on the female divorce and female professionals as my target market is that I understand them and I think you are your best client. So not only through the divorce, I moved countries. So with some of the international divorces, one party might choose to relocate to somewhere else. So there's another implication to think about. I raised children and I changed careers, not dramatically, but I did change careers. So there is various different elements. So that's what drives me because I can relate and I can understand the process, I believe.
Absolutely. And what a better way to kind of brand yourself than I've walked in the shoes you're about to walk in. I can help you and be that really, really safe pair of hands to take someone through that. In terms of other advisors, obviously we'll have a mix of kind of male and female listeners here. So if we've got a kind of male advisor, obviously we've got mainly males in our advice space, don't we?
Yes.
For those that are listening and maybe thinking, well, as a male advisor, what can I be doing or how could I show that I relate? Would you have any kind of insight or anything you would ask of others in that sense?
If you think about it, family lawyers, there is a good mix of female family lawyers and the male family lawyers. I worked with both. I didn't have a particular preference that my lawyer has to be male or my lawyer has to be female because I'm going through divorce with my husband. Not all men necessarily means that they're not good for me. So I think it's about the relatability, it's about the trust, it's about the experience to demonstrate, if you're able to demonstrate that you really do care about that person and this person trusts you and you have the relevant experience, I think it shouldn't stop you working with women going through divorce or man going through divorce. I choose to work with females, or more females are drawn to work with me because it's a natural process. But if a man comes to me and with going through divorce or something, I'm not going to say I'm not going to work with you. So I think it shouldn't stop someone who wants to focus in this area because they're male. it's just is not the most important thing.
It's that focus
to be
on
honest.
the customer, isn't it? Like
Exactly.
you say, that empathy, making sure that like the building of trust, like you say, and really caring and showing that passion. And that's come out in a lot of our episodes, hasn't it? This one in particular, obviously, it's slightly more specialised, but again, it sounds like it's even more important in this space because of the trauma that person is a lot of the time going through.
Yeah, and I think as well, when we look at the advice space, what I find interesting is a lot of financial advisors, and I'm generalising here, obviously we've got more men in our industry than women, and what I find is quite a lot of them have the financial relationship with the male only. And then when you ask them, have you ever touched base with the female in that relationship? You're dealing with the family finances, but it's only the man that you're interacting with. I find that really interesting. And when we did a recent presentation at a set of events, and we kind of quoted that a lot of females will actually move away from they'll move their finances away from that financial advisor, either if their spouse passes away or get divorced, because they've actually never interacted with them. Do you experience quite a lot of that? Like when the female comes in to see you, it's maybe their first time ever seeing a financial advisor?
It does happen, to be honest, and it's I wouldn't say typical, but it's very usual to see that the husband comes to the financial advisor and says, like, I'm going to sort out our pensions, I'm going to sort out my pension and my wife's pension, but wife is not there. Like, where is your wife? So it's like, I can send you the details and all the information, and she's just not interested. And sometimes I think it's the advisor that doesn't include the wife in the conversation. But sometimes, unfortunately, we as women we don't help ourselves necessarily. But I think it's very important to include them at an early stage. Like, as you say, if you never speak to them throughout their marriage, and if they divorce or if their husband passes away, the likelihood of them reaching out to you is not really higher, to be honest. So you need to somehow find a way to get them involved, especially in family financial planning, and then going forward in the long term.
And when you have been advising clients, male but predominantly, I suppose, female, through that, and when you've done it and you've gone through the process, and you might retain a relationship with them going forward, I'm sure you do you promote, I presume you would promote the fact of them owning their own finances going forward? I suppose they have to, because obviously they're on their own, but if they have another relationship going forward, to make sure things are much more balanced than perhaps they were previously.
At some occasions, like obviously after the relationship breakdown, the financial landscape changes. Not only financial landscape, all the family dynamics changes. Yeah. So lots of clients assume that, we're getting divorced, and my husband or my wife is always going to take care of the children. That's not a problem. So I'm not worried about that. But there is a long-term implications, and don't make any assumptions that the person that you're going through divorce with is not going to do this or is not going to ask for that. So people do show a very, very different side of themselves throughout the divorce. So it is also about being prepared for what's to come. And I think in that sense, protection is really important, talking about, during the divorce and any relationship breakdown, to be honest.
So where do you start the conversation? If you've got somebody coming in to seek your advice and assistance, where do you tend to start? Do you have a kind of set process, or is it very led by the client? How does that work for you?
I usually try and follow up the same process with the financial planning. So the first stage is, as we know, fact find, understand where the client is, where everything is, to be honest. And usually that's the stage where they are preparing for to exchange their Form Es and financial disclosures and etc. So that's quite an easy, fact find process with some clients. And then we talk about like what an ideal financial settlement might look like for them. And as I was saying to Vane before, while we were walking here, like some of my clients have got really unreasonable expectations with the financial settlement. Oh, my husband cheated because that's why I need to get all the house is mine and everything is mine. Unfortunately, that doesn't work like that. So try to get them understand what it might look like.
That must be a really hard conversation, especially in situations like that. There's so much passion and resentment there, and understandably the female then thinks, well, I want to take as much as I can from him because he's hurt me so badly. That must be difficult to try and retain your really strong relationship with them, but also create a realistic expectation as well. So
it's not an easy conversation sometimes, and not everyone likes to have these conversations, to be honest. But most clients, what I find is they really appreciate these conversations. Whether they find it hard at the beginning. So this is an ongoing process, again, like, setting up the goals. What's that you're aiming? What is important to you throughout this financial settlement? Because of these unrealistic expectations, the legal process or the divorce process takes really long time. And in my experience, unfortunately, like with many things in life, there is compromises to be made. And it's better to have these conversations earlier on than sitting with a shock and a regret, to be honest.
No, absolutely. And then in terms of kind of professional connections, obviously your clients will have like family lawyers and things working with them as well. So how closely do you also liaise with a family lawyer, or do you keep that quite separate? How does that work as part of your process?
It's usually kept separate because, again, these are like very different approaches from a legal point of divorce. And the financial settlement is also a legal process, but it is mainly a financial process. So a bit different. At some occasions, we do work with solicitors at the beginning, like, my client needs help understanding the capital gains tax implications, for example, with transferring some assets and etc. Can you please help my client with that? Then we just focus on that particular issue. But if we are working with a client in a generic financial settlement point of view, usually my clients come to me with, that's what my lawyer suggests, going to the court with, and ask this. Okay, but has he got this to ask, or is the valuation done correctly? So I think parallel, we do work in tandem in a way, but I believe that the legal process and the financial process is very, very different, and it should come together, I believe, in an ideal world. But I think it works really well going in tandem with the solicitor.
I agree. There's so much to consider. Just you mentioning that around the CGT implications. If someone comes to you and they've got limited income as well, then there's CGT on disposal of assets and switching between where does that money come from to pay for that, the protection of that, maybe against that or whatever, and a whole host of other things. It must be a complete, I wouldn't want to say, I call it awareness, maybe a wake-up moment for people. Wow, this is the importance of what I'm going through here. How big this is, if you like. I can imagine those conversations are so strong, so powerful.
And it's a scary thing when people go through that themselves. Or try and weave their way through it all by themselves.
You've been through it yourself, so you know exactly what it's like. So to have someone there, I suppose you're thinking back, you would know what it would have felt like to have someone help you through it.
Exactly. So that was the idea. In my business.
What was that saying you mentioned to us earlier?
The life doesn't happen to you. Life happens for you, because life is always going to throw us challenges. Yeah. There's no one in life that goes through like nothing happens, and if that person exists, that's good for them. But majority of the cases, something happens, like divorce happens, or you lose your job, or you lose someone that you really love. And I think as a financial advisor, it's our job to, approach with empathy and help, at least from a financial point of view, that they are doing everything correctly. And how to maybe change this to their advantage, because there's always a silver lining. I would like to believe, maybe I'm an optimist, I don't know, but that makes life a bit easier.
That reminds me of that other line you said to me. Was it be the
change you want to see? So yeah.
You are the epitome of that. That's just amazing what you do.
Thank you very much.
And we mentioned protection then.
Yeah,
so do you find quite a lot of the time, I mean, we see it definitely in our protection book, is that sometimes protection will just be left. You'll have married couples with joint policies, things like that, if people try and wade through it by themselves. So is that something that you find a really important part of your conversation, is to look at, well, what do you do with these protection policies? Or actually, if they've never looked at that before, how do they now protect themselves against losing income or illness and things? Is that something that you weave in to all your conversations?
Absolutely. I mean, financial settlement is about dividing the assets, and protection is actually protecting the assets, whatever is, it is difficult. It's challenging financially. You basically like cut one cloth into two and make it work. Like in my experience, people don't even know what protection policies they've got. Even if they have got a protection policy, they say, oh, okay, I've got a life insurance. But what life insurance? Is it a joint life insurance? Who pays for it? What's the premium? What does it cover? And all these questions that are like, you get blank-faced. And I do have these conversations to understand what is the existing policies are. Like, have you got a joint policy? So what's going to happen with the joint policy? Who's going to pay for it? Do you need any further, protection policies? Because the obligations usually, as I say, once you cut one cloth into two, the obligations also increases. So each party might need extra protection policies. There is also maintenance payments. What happens if something happens to the paying party? And all of those things should be taken into account. And I do definitely have the protection conversations a lot with my clients. Again, with the protection, I've had personal experiences with the protection within the family. So I'm really, really passionate talking about protection as well.
How does it work with the paying party, particularly if the paying party isn't present, for example, which is probably a common scenario?
It's a challenging one.
Right.
Some of the paying parties, which is, usually in my cases, because I work with ladies, the ex-husband is the paying party. If there are children involved, and depending on the arrangements, the childcare maintenance or the spousal maintenance, they might be willing to accept that, and it might be included in the financial settlement. Then it will be legally binding. There are some solicitors actually also keen to put these protection policies, especially protecting the maintenance payments, child maintenance and spousal. However, you cannot force someone to take an insurance policy. It's about the negotiation, to be honest. Some parties do agree, some parties
and it's
don't.
that tandem thing you mentioned earlier about working with the solicitor, isn't it, at the same time?
Yes.
Being on the same page.
Yeah, as a parallel. The solicitor might not pick that up. Usually, I think they're quite good in terms of protecting the maintenance payments and etc. But understanding the financial obligations, current financial obligations or the future financial obligations, they might miss it. And then when I point it out, they can go back to their ex-spouse or to their solicitor and then try and implement if there's anything that needs to be done and changed. Basically,
it's so valuable because if anything did go wrong, we again in our research we found, I think it's people's kind of take-home pay, essentially the financial situation they end up in tends to be about 30% worse off than what they were before going through a divorce. So to then think, imagine something happened to that paying spouse or ex-spouse, how on earth would you afford your children and your new lifestyle? That would be impossible. So I think it's something that I think a lot of advisors can start to think about, is actually if you even have existing clients who have already gone through divorce and they're receiving maintenance, is that protected? Definitely something to look out for, isn't it?
Exactly. And I think the clients really appreciate you for that kind of conversations. And I don't know, maybe some advisors think that, I'm not an insurance salesman, or, protection is not that important. I'll focus on building my AUM and etc. But what I see protection is the part that where you build the trust with the client. And especially if you're there for a client who's going through divorce, which is one of the hardest things to go through. They say that the trauma is relevant to missing someone you love and with the divorce. If you're there for them and if you show you care by protecting their financial future, then they're going to be your clients for long term.
Absolutely. That's been so insightful.
Fantastic stuff.
Yeah, what a passion you've got for it, and I
shines through.
Yeah, I can absolutely see why clients put their trust in you to get the right outcomes for them. If you had one top tip that you would give to other advisors or anybody listening, what would that be?
I think the top tip would be don't be afraid to have difficult conversations with your clients. Be open and honest with them. Obviously, we're not there to give them we're not therapists, but maybe we're a financial therapist. I don't know. I do see myself like that. And the clients will first find it difficult, but I think in the long term, they would really appreciate a straight talking financial advisors, but do that with the care and the empathy. So they're already going through a difficult time. First, approach them and build the trust, and then don't be afraid of having difficult conversations with them, because these are the conversations that's going to make the difference.
Yeah, they're the ones that matter.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah, exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time. You were absolutely fabulous.
Thank you.
We really appreciated having you on.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me here. Thanks for the conversation.